Hey, good evening. Thank you everybody for joining along and being here with me this evening on a nice Tuesday night. I do appreciate you guys. As always, all the gratitude in the world for everybody who comes and joins the show and follows along. I find this to be one of the most fun parts about doing what I do is just having the interaction with people. So it always anybody and everybody that comes along and wants to comment. And again, I love that and I appreciate every single one of you. So um, before we go and start talking about tonight's guest, I'm going to go ahead and cover most of the particulars, which I usually do every night. So if this is your first time watching the show, do us a favor. We're streaming live on a multitude of platforms. So if you're watching live, you can watch the show live on YouTube. If you're doing it there, do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button. We are trying to build our viewership there and hit the notification button. That way, you know when we do go live or when we do drop other episodes on our channel. So again, you can find us there at Made from Scratch Broadcast there on YouTube. Appreciate it. And then on top of that, guys, we are streaming live on Twitter as well. So if you're following along on Twitter, you can catch us there through Periscope, and that is at MFSB Live as well. You can drop in your comments there. We can actually interact with them while we're going through the show. So check us out on Twitter if you're following along there. We also stream live on Facebook. You can follow us on our Facebook page at Made from Scratch Broadcast as well. Same sort of deal. You can catch us live. You can also drop in the comments. We can interact there. I do appreciate everybody that follows along on Facebook and join the group there as well. I would really appreciate it. And then on top of that, we are streaming live on our website. And of course, oh yes, I almost forgot one of my favorite platforms. We're actually streaming live on LinkedIn. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, which is Gabriel Eel there, you can catch and follow along. And, you can interact with the comments. Like I already have people commenting. So hello, Beth Crosby. She's saying hello from South Carolina. I appreciate you. Thank you for following along. So, and again, go to the website. We are streaming live there as well, and that is at www.madefromscratchpodcast. There you can go to the live feed tab, and we are streaming live there. And you can also check out a lot of our past episodes. You can also check out the links to our podcast, and you can also catch our live internet radio station there, where we do play some of the past audio of the show, and we do put music on there, so it's just a fun way to keep interactive and that sort of thing. So thank you a lot, guys, for joining in. Again, all the gratitude in the world for everyone who comes along and shares. So about tonight's guest, guys, so let me tell you a little bit about him. So today's guest speaker spent 15 years sailing in search of stories. His company, Remarkable Stories Inc., teaches the art of business transformation through storytelling. If you want to say it, share it, or sell it, bring him the story. He'll help you tell it. He's the author of 12 books, and his latest book, Speak Inside the Box, on-screen presentation tips for speakers, trainers, and leaders, is out now on Amazon, so you guys can go check it out there. He'll be talking about his journey from sailing to storytelling. He's going to be sharing some of his valuable business communication tips and showing us how to connect and engage from the virtual stage. So, guys, I appreciate it again, everybody. Do me a favor, help me welcome to the show award-winning speaker, author, graphic designer, transatlantic sailor, and a pretty good jazz player, guys. If you don't know that as well, and I want to ask him about that. Please welcome Dave Bricker to the show, everybody. Hey, Dave, how are you doing there?
Just barely perfect. How you doing, Gabriel? It's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Thank you for joining along. I do appreciate it so much. We already do have people interacting a lot with on Twitter. So on LinkedIn. So I already have people flowing in with comments. So Beth Crosby from South Carolina said hello. Christina Honeycutt, Kenneth Dunner, he's awesome dude. He's always following along. He always watches the show. So thank you guys so much for interacting. So let's go ahead and get started a little bit about the interview. So, you sailed thousands of solo miles and across the Atlantic on a wooden boat. What inspired you to do something like take that kind of journey?
Well, when I was 18 years old, I got a job working on an art project. I live in Miami, and there was this big art project in Biscayne Bay. It was Christo's Surrounded Islands project, for anyone who remembers that. They surrounded a bunch of islands with a border of pink fabric. You could look it up, it's quite an interesting thing.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I met some incredible people while I was working there, and they lived on sailboats in the free anchorage in Miami.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was mesmerized. I was a private prep school kid, and my parents were professional people. I thought adventures were something you had in books and movies, and these people had incredible stories. They'd been all over the world and visited all of these places and had these great adventures, and I knew I wanted to do that too.
That's awesome, though. You would actually, at such a young age, right, to actually want to go out there and do something. I know most kids are sort of adventurous, but a lot of them wouldn't take on something like that. So that's pretty incredible. So,
It
and then
it was a
it,
few years before I was able to do
oh,
it because I wanted to finish college. I took that
yeah.
year off. I went back. It took me a while because I was trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to study. And
Of course.
but I got a degree in liberal arts. I majored in undecided, and about 6 months, during my senior year of college, I bought a little sailboat for $3,000. Began to fix that boat up, and about 6 months after graduating, I took off for the Bahamas with $30 in my pocket and a locker full of food and dreams, and
Wow.
headed out into the blue and just had fantastic experiences.
That's incredible. So, you speak about writing and storytelling. So, uh, you know, well, let's start about how you actually got into writing. So, what is the one thing that kind of drew you to wanting to become a writer of all things? Because that's not just an easy profession to hop into, like where you would say, I can work my way up into management. Learning to become a writer is an actual art, is a skill. So, what made you want to become a writer in the first place?
I think the fact that I've always been a reader since I was a little kid, I've always been a reader. And during those times when I was sailing, I had lots of time to read. I could just eat books for breakfast. So I did a lot of reading, and during that time really was when I started to get a little bit more serious about writing, and I just took notes and photographs and got into that. It wasn't until later in my life that I got interested in actually writing books. And that
Yeah.
was because I was working as a designer, and people would come and ask me to typeset their books and design their covers and things like that. And then, of course, I thought, well, gee, I can do this. This
Yeah.
really isn't. I mean, what's the big deal? So I started writing, and I wrote a couple of novels, the three novels to begin with, and then did a sailing memoir, and then thought, well, that's fun, but it's kind of artsy. Let's find some books that are a little bit more practical. And I wrote a book about self-publishing. I wrote a book about writing style, a book about just practical topics that have to do with writing and storytelling. I won't go through the whole list of books. I can't remember them all, but I just finished number 12, and I'm about 25,000 words into number 13.
Oh, wow. So that's pretty incredible. You know, uh, just real quick, somebody was commenting, can you increase his volume? I don't know. Maybe we can turn the volume up a
Yeah, let
little.
me see here. Let me see. One testing, 1 2. How are we doing? Is it a little better?
There you go.
Yep.
Little bit lower, a little bit lower, just a little bit.
Yeah,
Right there.
distorting just a little bit. Okay,
There you
good.
go. There we go. How's that, Beth? Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that feedback. I
Feedback. Yeah,
appreciate it.
I love that. We can be more interactive and people comment. So I even have people like already asking, saying hello, come in, they pop their comments. Thank you, Preston, for again following along as always. So, um, you know, guys, let me go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about Dave before we hop into the next question because he's done a multitude of things that we're going to talk in a little bit more in depth. But one of the messages why I love to bring people like yourself onto the show is the fact that even though you've done all these things, none of these things define you as a person. You are, again, you don't have to be stereotyped. You don't have to be typecast as one sort of thing. You've actually done, again, your moniker tell just enough that by itself, being a writer, a storyteller, a sailor, a jazz player, and all these things are all interesting parts and integral pieces into kind of saying who Dave really is. So people, you don't have to just be that one thing. I think a lot of people who work a whole career as one sort of a manager, or they're an accountant, right? And they'll spend their whole life saying that's all I am is just accountant. So they let their title kind of define their role in life and who they are as people. Where we're creatives like ourselves, we do everything. I'm like you. I've been a writer. I've been, uh, I've done. Here I am doing video, right? I've done blogs. I've done artwork. It's done it all. So kind of, I don't like. I'm like you. I don't like to be defined one way or another. So let's
I
go
think
ahead.
I think if I were to try that, I wouldn't succeed at it. I need to be a lot of things, and if I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, if you put me in a company, I'll be good at my job. But if I have just one job to do and I've got to stay in one silo, I'm going to go crazy. I need to do a lot of different things. It's just the way I'm wired. I think some people take comfort in the idea that there's one thing to do and that's all they've got to get good at. But I don't think I've got to be good at everything that I do. I don't think I'm the best in the world at anything I do, but I enjoy getting better and learning new skills and learning new things and trying new things. And
Yeah. So, and again, it speaks a lot about who you are as a person. So, how do you take an extraordinary experience like crossing the ocean or climbing a mountain or fishing a marathon and use finishing a marathon, excuse me, and use these stories to connect with other people? Tell me a little bit how would you do something like that?
I think that if you're going to be a storyteller, whether you're a writer, whether you're a speaker, or whether you're a designer or a musician, those are all different dialects of the storytelling language. And if you're just going to get up there and talk about yourself, people are going to lose interest pretty quickly. My father always said narcissism is the only disease in the world where the sicker you are, the better you feel. And no,
That's a
nobody
good one.
nobody wants to hear a speaker up there celebrating themselves, even if they've done something extraordinary. So I think it's really important. If I talk about crossing the ocean, I've got some good stories to tell about reefs and storms and calms and things like that. But it isn't too deep into the story. I'll get into it and talk about the oceans that my listeners, that my audience has to cross. We're all on a journey of some sort. We all have challenges to meet. We all have obstacles to confront. And the trick is to make your story a metaphor for the person in the audience's story. You don't need to run a marathon. You don't need to sail across an ocean. You don't need to climb Mount Everest to have a great story. We're all living stories every day, or we're bored to death.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it kind of like when I bring people on the show and I tell them essentially that your story is very interesting. It has some kind of value. It has something that people are going to find intriguing as long as you share it. And I think that's what people a lot of times have a problem trying to figure out is whether or not they think if their story has any kind of wow to it. They think that if you don't, again, like you were saying, you don't have to climb the mountain, you don't have to finish a marathon to have an interesting story. Um,
Stories can be really isolating. I know that, okay, I sailed across the ocean and I, climbed a volcano in the Azores and slept inside. I've done all this wacky stuff. But, I came back to the land of clocks and calendars and I'd go to a party or something. It's like, oh, you're that guy who lives on the boat. It's like, okay, it's all over for me. I'm the noble savage. I'm the freak, right? So people who have extraordinary stories, it can be very isolating for them. And again, I carried my stories around for 20 years before I wrote them down and started to share them. And the way I did it was I put them in the service of other people. And like I said, everybody's on a journey of some sort. Everybody runs aground. Everybody needs to learn to trust their compass. Everybody needs to learn that whatever happens on your boat is your fault, no matter who screwed it up. And there's plenty of great lessons to be gotten from those stories. And then they become everybody's stories.
Yeah. So, and it kind of one of the things that, you know, everybody kind of focuses on, right? Is, I mean, does the story have to be 100% true? I mean, where do you draw the line with storytelling? But again, it's your boat, it's your story, right? You're the captain, so you're kind of gonna lead the direction of where everything's going. And again, this is the fun part about creativity. Um, you can make any story up in your mind and share it with the world, and people at some point will find it and they'll find value in it. And you might go, well, it wasn't true. Well, it's not the fact that it's not true. It's the fact that what it meant, how it resonated, what the message was that people found it. Again, because um, you know, you can find books that have messages, but are uh, are false. You couldn't believe it if it was reality. But since it's fiction, you can create and go in any direction and still add a message to it. Like one of my favorite books is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and it is a great message book. The story is kind of out there, but again, it's the message. It's what's important, and I think that's what I love about creative writers, storytellers, people who create. That's kind of like the theory behind my show. So every idea, every story, every business starts from scratch. Um, so that's where I came from the title from, made from scratch.
Yeah.
Because again, you can start out with just an idea, and even if it's loosely based on experiences that you had in your life, you don't have to draw it 100% true. So I love the fact that you talk about that and you share those things. And you know, when you do, let's just say whenever somebody comes to you who is looking for a writing coach and somebody kind of guide them in writing a book, what advice would you give somebody like that who wants to share a story, but again is kind of unsure whether or not they should add all the details of their lives if it's loosely based on something, an experience that they've had?
I think that it's a great question. And I like that you tied it into the question about whether or not the story should be 100% true. I think that there are some intuitive boundaries, but storytelling is not journalism. If you're writing an article for a newspaper, then you put the details in and you put the facts in. I'm not sure everybody actually does that these days, but the idea is you're a journalist and you're trying to let people know what happened as accurately as possible. But if you're a storyteller, your job is to transform the reader, transform the audience in some way. You want them to think, feel, or act differently after they've been exposed to your piece, after your work, your speech, whatever it may be. And whatever best serves the audience is what should be in there. Now, if I told you I sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, and that's true. If I told you I did and I hadn't, that would be a lie, not a fiction.
Yeah.
However, if I told you that I journeyed from island to island to island to island to island, and in fact, I went to those islands on 5 separate trips, I just made the navigating of that little chapter a lot easier for you. You didn't
Yeah.
have to sail back and forth. There's no point in it. Or if I made up a character who was plausible, who helped me make a point. The fact of the matter is, if a month from now someone were to interview us and ask us what we talked about, you and I would tell very different true stories about what went on in this interview.
Yes, yes. And again, it's all about, again, you talking about interpretation, and you're talking about uh, because again, somebody can read the same book and have different opinions and take different interpretations to what it on. I mean, look at the greatest book ever written, the Bible. So many people draw so many different conclusions from the same true words that have always been there. Um, it's the greatest way that, again, it leaves so many things open to interpretation for people. So
Yeah, that in the phone book, right? Everybody
yeah,
gets something different out of it.
exactly. So but again, that whenever you do share a story, um, and especially since you're writing fiction, creating those characters, right, adding those depths that add to the message that you want to share, those are all wonderful points that again, it doesn't have to be real to make an impact. um,
It
and
has
that's
to be authentic to make an
yes,
impact, and that's the difference.
there you go, and that's the way to do it. So you've written a number of books, and some of them are about storytelling. Tell me about the latest one that you've actually written, which is called wow, blanking.
It's called
Speak Inside the Box.
Speak
Yes.
Inside the Box. A
So
little brightly lit here. But
you, tell us a little bit about that, because again, it's a very timely book, and um, it's something that a lot of people can actually use right now because of what we're actually going through and how we're actually having to adapt to this new world. So tell us a little bit more about the book.
well, I've got a background in professional speaking. I am a member of the National Speakers Association and have been speaking for some time. And not just speaking, I love this whole idea of presentation skills, of storytelling, and helping people learn to tell stories, whether they're telling it on a big stage or telling it in a conference room or telling it to a prospective customer. This whole idea of storytelling and not just what you say, but how you say it has always fascinated me. And I was in the middle of writing a book. It's going to be called That Other Book on Public Speaking because there are so many of them. And of course, I've got a little different take on it. And then the COVID-19 hit and everybody went on lockdown. And I thought, okay, it's the meeting industry apocalypse. All the speaking gigs have dried up, all the conferences, all the meetings, everything is gone. And we're all going home to work on Zoom and WebEx and all of these different video conferencing tools. And I thought, I've got all this material, and it's time for me to stay a page ahead of the class anyway and learn what I can. And I started writing and researching and writing and researching because I thought, look, it's great if I can share this with the world, but I got to save my own butt too. I need to learn about
Yeah.
green screens and cameras and microphones and it's this endless journey, right? But and then I'd get on a Zoom meeting and I'd see that people were dark and people were blurry and people had bad color, and I thought, these are the same people who spent $600 on a pair of heels or a sport jacket, and these things are now hanging in the closet, and they need to spend that same money on some lights and a better camera and a good microphone because this is the new black in business fashion. People need to look good on camera, and it's a shift. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are sitting around waiting for the future to turn back into the past. So I thought, I'm going to write a simple guide. I'm not going to go into all the nitty gritty details because if I mention a particular piece of software or technology, 2 months from now, it's going to all be different. But I just go through the basics. What do you need to know to look good in a video conference? What do you need to know about green screen basics? What do you need to know about studio lights and how to light yourself and how to light your room? And then again, if you're a professional speaker, how do you build a virtual stage without spending thousands of dollars? Especially, you can't get a carpenter to come to your house.
Yeah.
You can't go to the lumber store and buy plywood. I mean, everything's shut down. So, what can you do with your camcorder and a couple of gadgets? Cheap. And that's basically what the book is about. And if you look on the front of my website, I've got 3 videos I've shot on my virtual stage, and it looks like I'm on a stage with a big screen behind me, and
Yeah.
it's just It's smoke and mirrors. It's I think that as conferences return and people want to have meetings again, they're going to be face-to-face meetings, but there's going to be a virtual component. I think the hybrid model is here to stay, and if I can deliver that big stage experience from my little studio here in Miami and not have to get on a plane and not have to deal with airports, there's a reason they call those places terminals,
Yeah.
and just I'd rather work right here.
Yeah.
So I did it for myself, and I thought, well, there's an audience for this, and it'd be great if I make a few bucks about on it. But independent books don't make a lot of money unless you're very lucky. It really is a matter of creating credibility for yourself, being the person who wrote the book on your subject.
Yeah. So, and again, this forum of creating video, creating all these things, um, it has no limitations, kind of like writing. Um, the ways, the things that you can do, the technologies that are there, you can create ways to be very innovative as long as your imagination lets you allow you to do it. There's actually virtual studios that you can actually look like you're sitting behind a desk. Um, it has there's functions to do multi-camera views in some of these virtual studios, and it really just, again, how creative do you want to be? What are you trying to what are you trying to present? What are some of the things that you can do, again, to make yourself look really good, make yourself, and again, it just takes a little bit of time. So yes, that money that you were spending on a $600 suit, you can invest that in, a lot of the technology to kind of, $600 itself can at least boost you into a medium level sort of production and being able to do a lot of interesting things. Not having to, again, you don't have to go super fancy, you don't have to go super technical, but again, you can imagine when you're sitting there and you're talking about a $100,000 executive trying to do a Zoom call with really dim lighting and, again, bad background noise and all this other stuff, where if you would have just taken a little time, a little effort, again, you can bring that across. It's pretty amazing what you can do with technology now, and all the tools, everything that you need, everything that you want is out there. And for some people, um, who do have the expendable money, you throw a little bit of money into this sort of video production sort of thing, man, you can create, your options there are limitless, with what you can do.
Well, you can
So
go full Pixar if you want.
yeah.
The sky's the limit. But the good news is you don't have to. I think
Yeah.
a simple green screen, a couple of lights, and I'm still experimenting with the best position for lights and things. But this is working. And then I'm thinking there's some really innovative, very affordable solutions. Like you can get a DJI Osmo gimbal for your phone,
Yes.
and that's got tracking software on it. So what you can do is you can shoot video, and as you move around your virtual stage, that camera is going to actually follow you with a close-up shot. So maybe you've got a camera doing you from the waist up or the knees up, and you got another camera on close-up that's literally moving around, following you as you move, and then there are devices where you can automate the camera switching, and your computer just sees the whole thing as a webcam. It's fantastic what you can do, and I don't have a lot of that gear, but I'm always figuring out how can I put stuff together where I can deliver a bigger and better experience. Connect and
Yeah.
engage from the virtual stage. And then, of course, it all comes back to you've got all this technology, but you have to know how to use your voice. You have
Yes.
to know how to pause. You have to know how to use your big voice and then get quiet and draw people so they lean over in their chairs. And the way that we use our voice and our body, we're more limited, especially if we're sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
But all of these presentation skills now matter more than ever. And this is how we influence decision makers. This is how we get people to pay attention to us.
Yeah, and again, you you can be as a just as you are with your storytelling. You can be just as imaginative with the presentation that goes along with it. So if you wanted to create a whole production, you could. And again, it does start with your story, right? It does start with the way you do things, and there's certain small little techniques, little things that you can do. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars, but little things will make a little difference. So, um, underneath me, like I have here, I have a small light. Let me show everybody. Here it is. Take it out. Right. So to kind of illuminate a little bit from underneath, and this is advice that I got from a guy who used to be a lighting gaffer, who I've had on my show. He goes, "You need to use a light to kind of illuminate your face a little bit underneath. You do have a reflection." I said, "Oh wow, thank you." Um, he kind of walked me through it, and same sort of deal though. He was kind of like very similar to yourself, Dave. He's a ghostwriter, but he worked 15 years in theater production and doing that sort of background. So he kind of was sharing with me, "Hey, I like the things that you're doing." He gave me a little bit of a few tips here and there, and I go, "Oh, okay, cool, thank you." Um,
Well,
but
I can't show you my light that's facing me, but I've got an LED panel that's about 5 by 7 inches, a
Yeah,
little panel, and it's on one of its lowest settings. And all it does is it gives me a gentle fill so I don't get hot spots on my forehead and my nose and things like that. And you're gonna laugh at this. It's good to have a side light. It accents the
yeah.
shadows and things. Now this is a light I bought a long time ago. This is a joke. It's this little. See if we can get it in front of the camera. It's oop, going the wrong way. Yeah. So it's this little LED light, and it's
Oh
super
yeah.
bright. What you're seeing here is this is a paper towel that's folded over about 4 times and wrapped around there, and it creates a diffusion screen for that otherwise blinding light, and it works. It's a perfect little fill light. I think I paid $20 for a pair of those things a long time ago before I knew anything about lighting, and of course I couldn't use them because they would blind me.
Yeah.
So there it is. It's a cheapo LED lamp with a paper towel on it. But and then I can pull in beside me. I've got these big
And
softbox
also it's
lamps, and
yeah.
they're not even on right now. But behind me is a 9 foot roll of green screen
Screen,
paper,
yeah.
and I can pull it down in front of my bookcase and then crank it back up.
Yeah, and I love
It's
that
it,
too. It's just pretty fun, what you can do with the video aspect of it, and making a creativity aspect. But again, it goes back to your story though. So what are you trying to share, right? What do you want people to what's the story that you're telling? How do you want it to resonate with people? How do you want it to connect? How do you want it to come across? And what hopefully what's the impact that you'll have sharing what you have to share when you're speaking with somebody? Because I do have a lot of people who've done who are public speakers or did do public speaking before all of this happened. So that sort of deal. So I kind of asked them the same sort of questions. Well, what are you doing now to kind of like not only keep your skills up to par, but also what are some of the things that you're trying to add to what you can do? And they're kind of like on the back page, whereas like what you're doing, where you're jumping straight into it, you're bringing it to the forefront, you're sharing these things in a book, you're putting all this stuff together. A lot of these public speakers are kind of waiting back in the wings, thinking the same sort of deal, right? That, oh, I'll just wait till everything goes back to normal. We had this conversation before. I don't think it's going to go back to normal.
I think we're going to have a new normal, and it's going to meet somewhere. They'll be bounced back. And look, I can't wait to get on a stage again in front of a real audience. That's a rush. It's fun to do. However, I also know that, look, there are going to be a lot of virtual speaking opportunities that come before the real ones come. And frankly, look, I live in South Florida. I've got Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Palm Beach. So when I go travel to speak, I've got to fly over a lot of prospective opportunities to get somewhere. So
Yeah.
and look, Orlando's 3 hours away from me by car. So there's so much work in South Florida. Why do I want to travel all over the
Of the
world
world.
speaking? I mean, it sounds romantic, but I've got friends who do that, and I admire them for it. It's not the way I want to make my speaking money. And what I really love is coaching. I love working with people, with groups, with individuals, doing workshops, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that what happens is, for me, I wanted to have my virtual stage set up, a big green screen where I could, and a big camera, nothing big, but a 4K camcorder mounted on the wall on the other side of the room, and I can shoot myself from the knees up with that, and I've got whatever 6 or 8 feet to walk across the stage. I can take you on that journey from conflict to transformation. I can move over here and play a character and move over there and play a character. Right now, this is great. You and I, we've got our headphones on and our condenser mics. We're having a conversation, and
Yeah.
this is a broadcast scenario. But I wanted a scenario where if I'm speaking, that I can use my body, I can use my voice, I can use my face, I can come close to the camera, I can come back away from the camera, and I can use my presentation skills to transform that audience.
Yeah, and again, it there's a lot of things that people really have to learn about it, because again, you can actually kill somebody's ear tones coming and speaking right into the mic, and again, learning that sort of balance, um, knowing what to say, how to say it. All these things come into play that a lot of people don't understand. And one of the first things that I had to learn, and I've been sharing with people who ask me, is like when you do a live stream, what I'm doing now, right? Um, there are a few particulars that go into doing a live stream, and number one is, you know, using the camera that you're going to use. How high of a stream are you going to try to use? If you're using 4K resolution, there's certain there's certain particulars like upload your bandwidth, your upload speed, that are going to play into what you're doing. So the higher the resolution, the more bandwidth you're going to need to keep that live stream and upload those really high quality videos. So that thing comes in important, because I learned that when I first started doing the live broadcast. I learned that I was streaming at too high of a resolution on a low bandwidth speed, so you get a lot of problems. You might have lag, pixelation, all these sort of things, and it really affects the quality of the product. Now, again, the message is important. That's always the main thing that you want to focus on. But if these little things like what you see, where there is pixelation, there is drag, kind of interrupt that message, then that might turn off a few people, where it would connect with them if it was just a really great crisp picture, really great lighting, the whole thing. All those sort of things go into play. So um,
And let me pivot for just a minute, because
yeah,
I wonder if some of our listeners aren't thinking, okay, these guys are off in the technical weeds all of a sudden, and
no,
I thought this was, I'm a little scared, because this is scary stuff for a lot of people. But the fact of the matter is, if you embrace this, you learn it, and you learn it just by experimenting. You learn it by streaming at too high a bit rate and wondering why your signal doesn't look good. And then you go into YouTube University and you get a little schooling, and somebody's there with a fantastic video that tells you how
yes,
to do it. And it's not about, you have to be more in love with learning than you are afraid of technology. And all of this, you just learn it one little bit at a time. And hey, keep your brain active. We're not getting younger, right?
hey,
keep
right,
keep changing, keep evolving, keep learning new skills, keep educating yourself, and keep finding new mentors and teachers. And I joke about YouTube University, but when I started writing that book, I knew nothing about green screens other than the concept. Okay, I put a green screen behind me, and then I tell the computer to knock out everything that's green, and as long as they don't drink from my green cup, Here,
Yeah.
watch what happens. Right, here's my
Yeah.
green cup, and the background shows through it. Right, so it's like
Yeah.
you learn these things like, okay, don't drink from the green cup while you're on the green screen. And
Yeah.
but you have some fun with this stuff. You make your mistakes.
Yeah.
And this is streaming media. This is not NBC or CBS or CNN, or nobody's expecting you to be polished and to have cameras with $25,000 lenses on it. It's just, look what we are able to do. We couldn't have touched this 10 years ago.
No, and again, if you're going to be intimidated by video, right, you're probably intimidated by a lot of other things in life. Like, so I've had people who tell me, man, I want to learn how to, I really want to write a book. And the first thing that pops in my mind is, why don't you? I don't know how to write a book. Go learn. You know, again, sort of same sort of deal that what you're talking about with video. A lot of people put these forms of resistance in front of themselves, and they don't ever attempt it. They don't even take the step. They don't even take it because they're afraid of what it takes to do it. And then when you start doing it, you start realizing, well, this isn't so bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was.
Well,
And you're gonna make
I deal with this all the time with writers, and especially with people who really want to develop public speaking skills, and they're terrified. And it's interesting because most fears, 99% of the things that we're afraid of in this world, begin with the words what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? And we make up these scenarios and we paralyze ourselves with our own imaginations. So I'm afraid all the time. You think I wasn't afraid to get on a sailboat and sail 26 days nonstop to the Azores? And I mean, who does this stuff? But at the same time, think about someone who spends an hour a day on the expressway. Their odds of survival were you know, I would bet my odds sailing across the ocean than what they deal with any day. So it's not rational, but okay, so you get out and you join Toastmasters and you do your icebreaker speech, your first speech, and let's say you get up there and you freeze. Well,
yeah,
so what? It's a public speaking organization that's there to support you, and everybody will clap for you and say, why don't you come back in a couple of weeks? Try it again. Thank you for being here.
yeah,
And so it's not like, oh, you better get through your speech without dropping a line or we're going to shoot you.
yeah.
Nothing's going to happen to you. You're
You
going to
know,
be fine.
and let me tell you, this is a confession I'm making, and I've made this confession on the air before. I do have a fear of public speaking. Funny enough that I'm doing this, right?
Well, welcome to being normal. I have a fear of public speaking.
So that was one of the things that I wanted to do before all of this hit, right? Is I wanted to go conquer that fear of standing on the stage and talking, because I again wanted to reach out. I wanted to learn how to motivate people, become a motivational speaker, share inspiration, that sort of thing. But the only way that I was going to go do that was, of course, being on stage, being in front of people, and being able to talk. So I had planned to do some of these things before all this shut down. And but again, it's one of the things that's on my list to do. And I was even thinking about joining Toastmasters myself, so that I would have to go. I want to go conquer this fear. I want to go stand in front of a stage and talk to people.
Well,
Um,
Toastmasters is a wonderful organization. It's great. I think of it as my speaker gym. And
there you
you
go.
get snobby people, and it's the equivalent of like, oh well, I'm already in shape. What do I need the gym for? But but
Yeah,
they start. It's a great program. They start you off with just an icebreaker speech. They're all short speeches, and they give you different exercises depending on what path you want to go on: a leadership path, a storytelling path, a communications path, a humor path, whatever it is. And you start off with the basics and you go through. They give you assignments, you get evaluated, and I'll tell you, just by going to Toastmasters over the past 3 years, I have either given or listened to and evaluated over 500 short speeches. You do
Wow.
not get that education anywhere else.
Wow.
And I got to tell
No.
you, some of my best lessons have come from people. It was their first or second time there. They knew nothing about speaking, but something I said hit them. Maybe not in the right way, but there's the environment where they came up to me and said, "Dave, I loved your ending. I loved how you finished your speech. And then instead of just leaving the stage, you started putting your laptop away and took the projector off the stage. And when you went from being this amazing presenter to being your own roadie, you lost it for me." And learned an
Oh,
important lesson,
wow.
right? Like, okay, you come on strong. You don't. And you see this at meetings too. People like, okay, before we start the meeting, I want to show you. Okay, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, and I want to. There's a button on your upper right for speaker view or gallery view, and da 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 da. And this speaker's doing all of this stuff, and then like, okay, now we're going to start. Well, try to hook an audience after you've done all of this. You've been an usher at your own show. Once you've shown everybody their seat, you're going to get on stage and expect people to treat you like a star. No, so all of this stuff translate. I call it breaking the fifth wall. And
Wow.
the fourth wall, I just published a blog post about that today on my storysailing.com site. But think about this idea that a stage has four walls: the three walls in back and beside you, and the invisible wall between the audience. And so if you're watching a movie, usually the character doesn't look. And
Yeah.
maybe in a funny movie, the character turns and looks at the camera and says, "Well, what do you think?" They've
Yeah.
broken the fourth
And
wall.
wow.
That those and now when you're a public speaker, it's all fourth wall theater, right? You're talking to the audience, but there's the fifth wall, and what I call the fifth wall is when you say, "Okay, Gladys is telling me I've only got 3 minutes left, so it's time to wrap it up."
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having some problems with my slide remote." Don't
Yeah.
tell the audience that. You're making their problems your problem. "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm running late." Don't apologize. Just get on with the show. Don't break the fifth wall. And I did that when I thought I was being so polite and taking all my crap off the stage so the next speaker could come up. No, there's a Toastmaster there. There's an MC whose job it is to prep the stage for the next performer. Let them do it. You're not asking them to clean up some sort of horrible mess.
Yeah.
And it's these kinds of tips that make the difference in terms of how are you going to engage the audience or not.
Yeah.
How many people come on stage and, "Hey, is this on? Can you hear me?"
Wow. Let's come on, man.
No, you just missed. Instead of, have you ever wanted to imagine a world where, something where you're immediately
Yeah.
grabbing people with with a question or a statistic? Did you know that 78.4% of statistics are made up on the spot? Whatever it is.
Yeah, there you go,
Something,
right?
a joke, a story, and instead they're talking about everybody. Can you guys move up to the front row? Can
Yeah.
you hear me? Or my favorite is, "Good morning."
Yeah.
"I can't hear you," and everyone's like, "Oh God, another one of these clowns."
Yeah.
But it's an art form. It's a performance art, and you learn it. And Toastmasters is a great place to get the basics of that. And then there's the National Speakers Association it's a professional association for people who are a little bit more experienced, but they do have a speaker academy. They've got chapters in a lot of states, and it's a marvelous organization.
Wow. And um this
It's
is
the
the
NSA that talks, not the NSA that listens.
yeah. There you go. So this is such an interesting aspect about uh what you can do, what you can go out and learn to do. Um, and this forum that I've created and share with people offers me opportunities. Here's one right now. I would just kind of interest me, right? Um, if you can see the comment, she says, "You're welcome to join the Brickell Toastmasters here. We love guests virtually and in person." So,
And
what?
Zainab is a dear friend of mine, and so thank you for tuning in, Zainab. It's always great to see you.
Yeah. So, gosh, that's one I'm gonna have to bite on. Because again, this is the part of what I was telling people, that getting on video is no challenge, or not a challenge. It's not as scary as intimidating as you think it is. So for me, this is going to be the same thing. So if I'm telling people jump on a video, go ahead and do it, I have to take my own advice, right, and go, okay. So people, I will be joining Toastmasters now. You're seeing it on this episode. You'll be able to go back and mark it episode 46. I'm going to be doing, because again, I want to learn how to do public speaking. I'm like you, I want to learn. So if anybody wants to throw anything my way when it comes to learning, I'm like a sponge right now. I absorb it, I take it in, I evaluate it, and then I start implementing the things that kind of fit into my own style and my personality. And I love this. Again, and I love that that you're sharing all your passions out there with writing and coaching and public speaking with people, because again, there's some, I've already had like close to 40, 50 comments on LinkedIn where people are just, talking about what we're doing here. And, even on YouTube. So Preston had to run a while ago, but he's going to follow with the rest of the program.
Preston, good to see you. Thanks for showing up.
Appreciate you, buddy. Again, this is the fun part. It makes it interactive. So I want to be able to put my fears out there, and it puts me in a form of being accountable for what I want to go conquer. And I do want.
Think about it rationally. What's going to happen to you? What's the worst case scenario? You go to Toastmasters and you work on a speech and you think you're ready and you're not, and you screw it up. Well, okay, big deal. That's the safe. It's like, yeah, you're there to learn to walk on the tightrope, but there's a net there, and the tightrope is an inch off the ground. So stop scaring yourself and go do it. And you know what? It's fun.
Yeah.
And what happens? I've never jumped out of an airplane. I know a lot of people who have and like to do that. It's just never been on my bucket list. But, but people, they've done a study, and the first time people jump out of an airplane and they're standing in the doorway and they're thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to do this. I am really scared. And if you measure the cortisol level, the stress hormone level, it's pretty high, as you can imagine. Now you come back and you take someone who's done it 50 times because they love it. If you measure the cortisol level, it's the same. But it's that dopamine level, it's that expectation of that rush they're going to feel when they start falling and get to terminal velocity and feel that they're floating, and there's that view and that feeling and that cool air, and they're excited, but the stress level is the same. So if you're afraid of public speaking, congratulations, you're normal. But guess what? You're not going to get hurt. Now, you might get hurt jumping out of an airplane. You got to be really talented to get hurt. Public speaking, right? So, okay, so you challenge yourself, but what happens is at the end of it, and it'll surprise you the first time because you won't be expecting it, even though I'm warning you, is at the end of your first speech, your icebreaker, you're going to get a standing ovation, because that's the tradition that they welcome people into Toastmasters. You do your first speech and you get that standing O, and you know what? It's going to blow your mind to have a room full of people stand up and cheer for you. Wow. And the fact of the matter is, you will have deserved it just for making the attempt. And people get addicted to that. It feels good. It's a good thing to get if you can connect with a room full of people and get supportive feedback from a whole room full of people. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and that's what's the thing for me that I want to be able to do. It's not only, I can do this all day long, but here's the thing about it, and it's nothing against video streaming. You don't get that instant feedback. You don't get that connection. You don't see that. You don't get to feel the energy. You don't get to. You can always say, well, it's just me and a camera. That's cool. There's nothing wrong. That's how I actually sold the approach to people. We're just going to have a conversation with the camera on. That's it. It's that comfortable. But I want to be able to stand on the stage and look out there and see a sea of eyes and people, and just know that, again, I'm going to be able to have that instant connection with people. But again, that's what I love. I love that instant connection, that feel, that radiant energy that comes from being on. My heart's already racing now thinking about it. and I haven't even done it. So, again, thank you, Dave, so much for sharing everything. And I'm going to give a shout out to all the people who've been following along here on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Thank you, Olatha. Thank you for Scott, Christina Honeycutt. Thank you for joining along. Kenneth Dunner. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, beautiful Wendy Julio. She's awesome. I love her. Brooke Gelfand. Thank you again for hopping on and sharing. They're being so supportive. Christina Honeycutt's like Toastmasters is so supportive. I love it. So yes, definitely an organization that I want to be involved with, and even check it out. You are bigger than your fear, and you're already here on camera. Yes, thank you. And again, I think that being able to do this and being able to go stand in front of a public audience are just things that I'm going to love doing. It's just the buildup. It's the same thing that goes along with anything. It's the buildup about the anticipation. It really gets you.
And I have to tell you, of all the things that I do, because I work with people on their books and do some graphic design, not as much as I used to, but I do a lot of things related to communication. I think coaching speakers is among my favorite, because what happens to people in a very short time, I've seen people who come in and they can't even make eye contact, and they shake your hand with this kind of limp noodle kind of handshake, and they're just so terrified to engage with another human being.
Yeah.
And after a few speeches, something starts to happen, and this incredible change, this transformation comes over them, and they are they become different people, and they gain this confidence, and they realize, oh God, I would have been terrified to go talk to that attractive person, but guess what? It's just another audience that has one person in it. I can do this. I'll go make conversation and see what happens. These are the people who ask for a raise. These are the people who ask for the overtime. These are the people who say no when they're overloaded, and they get this confidence. And look, I lived on a sailboat for 15 years. I'm about the most introverted person you could ever meet. And I laugh all the time because people meet me. Oh, you're just a major extrovert. It's like, no, I just learned to fake it.
There you go, right? So, guys, everybody out there, we all have the ability to do this. We all have the ability to, whether it's public speaking, whether it's being on camera, whether it's writing a book. We all have the ability to do this. It's just about us going out there and taking the action and taking the steps to want to do this. And stop letting the intimidation factor be the thing that makes the decision for you. And I tell people all the time that, you're only going to go as far as you allow yourself to go. So if you want to only talk about writing a book and never do it, then that's what's going to happen. You say you want to go, again, you want to go jump off a plane and whatever.
I recommend a parachute.
Sure. But you always talk about, but you never go do it. Well, again, that's as far as what you're talking about. That's as far as it's only going to go. So take steps, take action, go do these things. And guys, if you're interested in doing any of these things, about writing a book, doing public speaking, getting coached, check out my friend Dave Bricker. You can go to his website at www. You can see the website under there, www.storysailing.com. He's got lots of links on there. You can also go find the links to his books, his coaching, his blog, his videos are all up there on his website. It's pretty interactive. I really like it. I like the layout of it. So check it out, man. Dave's an awesome guy. And again, he's also helping people come into the video age who really need help. So guys, again, thank you so much for coming on. We've been on for an hour, Dave, and it doesn't even seem like it. We can go on a little bit longer.
No, it's been a great ride. I've enjoyed it. Thanks so much for having me on. It's just been a pleasure.
All right, guys. Well, I'll see you again tomorrow night, 7:00, same time, with my guest, Rusta Somers. He'll be on, and we're going to be talking about all the interesting things that he's doing. He's a former musician now who's also getting out into the public forum. So we're going to share his story. It's a little bit interesting, and I love talking to those creative people like that. So thanks again, Dave. Guys, go check out his website. Thank you guys for everybody who came on the show, everybody who was interacting online. See you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, guys. Remember, practice safe social distancing, wash your hands, do all the things they're asking you to do. We're all going to get through this together. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we're getting there, folks. So
and floss every day.
There you go. Have a great evening. Bye. Bye, everybody.